of Brant County Council on December the 18th, 2025. Because it is a special meeting, the agenda will stay as it stands with there's an addendum. But other than that, attendance has been taken. Apparently Councillor Chambers isn't here. Don't know that he served us some regrets, so he could be here. Could be here. Other than that, everybody else is here. Approval of the agenda, mover, Councillor Pierce, Councillor Coleman. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Declaration of pecuniary interest. Does anyone have anything? It's really just an information session, but if one crops up, please let me know. 401, 4-1, additional information. That was the addendum. Everyone has that in front of them. And there was also the extra report for the Cleaver Ridge Road Bridge. You have that in front of you too, everyone? Yeah. Okay. I guess, Heather, you can take it. Heather, you can take it from here. We'll bounce back and forth, but if you want to give it a go, we'll get started.
Thank you, through the mayor. Good morning, everyone. This morning we're here, the second presentation of the long-term financial plan annual review for 2025. Just a quick overview of what we're looking at today is we did do the presentation of the draft model on December the 4th, and we heard from the public at that meeting and also presented the results of the public engagement survey. So there was some questions that came up and some additional information requested at that meeting, and that we'll be going through for the first part of this morning's meeting. We will present an update to the model with some additional information since December 4th. We do have an in-camera session scheduled to discuss a potential property acquisition, so we will do that in turn, and then following from that, there are a number of items highlighted in the long-term financial plan that we're seeking council's recommendation on. So a recommendation from council would mean that it would be presented to the mayor for consideration as part of his budget coming in January. As is pertinent for all our discussions on budget type matters for 2026, an increase or decrease of $875,000 represents a 1% change to where our starting point is for 2026.
Good morning, through the mayor. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, actually, there was a request for additional comparative data. So we've collected the tax rates for the residential home or residential class for our neighboring municipalities. And even with some of the larger increases the county has experienced percentage-wise in the last few years, the county is still trending as the second lowest in our comparative group there. This is another additional comparison with a little broader group that shows, given with our median home of $387,000, applying the residential class tax rate of all those municipalities to that 387, what their taxes would be, and just to show we are again the second lowest in that comparator group. As a go forward, like where other municipalities are so far, quite a few have had some budget meetings, but are concluding or continuing on into January, so no final numbers for them as of yet. Moving on to the changes between what was in the LTFP in the proposed with what actually was approved or is being proposed. This is just a summary of the changes from over that period of time. Debt issuance, so there was questions or wanting some details around the debt in the LTFP. So currently, the county has 14 debentures with Ontario, Infrastructure Ontario, with a principal of 57.5 million as of the end of December 2024. One will be paid off in 25, and then over the 10-year forecast, there'll be debt maturing in 26, 2027, 2028, 2030, 2031, 2032, 33, and 34. And when this happens, it'll release some capacity in the repayment limit. Included in that debt are the OPP construction, gravel to hardtop, Bethel Road improvements, and the landfill slope stability. Further, under existing non-growth debt charges, tax supported, this is a list of some, but not all of the projects, key projects that were funded through debentures from 2010 to 2023. So timing, so projects under estimated debt charges for approved debt proposed. Staff will be bringing forward a report to issue debentures in 2026. And some of the projects to be included are the Restacre Road Phase 2, King Edwards Street and Falkland Road, the Burford and Min exterior, and the TF Warren Community Center. Those are the tax-supported portions of those amounts. And the tax levy charge on those amounts is just $595,351. So projects under estimated debt charges for approved debt yet to be issued. So the following projects have an approved budget funded from debt to be repaid by tax levy. This is an estimate at this time. Subject to change, so 2027 debenture, Race Street reconstruction, Broadway Street reconstruction, Main Street, Dundas Street, and Wilkins Community Center. A 28 debenture issue would include the Biggers landfill expansion, and 2030 would be the Paris Main Branch Library BSC addition, Glen Morris Hall replacement, and Bendemeer Road. So just as a note, all the debt and debenture information included in this analysis relates to the tax-supported debt amounts only, and any debt to be repaid from development charges at rates is not included, as it does not impact the bottom line of the tax levy for the LTFP, but will impact the annual repayment limit.
Through the mayor, at the December 4th meeting, we were asked to look at what could possibly done if we increased our annual repayment limit to self-imposed 1 to 20%. So we did the analysis based on a few assumptions. One, the current IO interest rate. Any projects advanced would be budgeted for completion in 2027. I don't imagine any significant projects could actually be designed and built in 2026. We did not include any federal provincial grants in our model. And we also did not include any impact on operating costs for future years. So just a few things to keep in mind. If we did increase the self-imposed limit, it would create just under $65 million in additional debt capacity available for projects in 2027. So what that would look like on our annual repayment limits. So Heather Bailey, our manager of budgets and long-term financial plan, deaded out that we would be at our 20% in 2031. So that's considering other ARL commitments that we have, largely some of the big wastewater projects that will be coming online in 2029, 2030. So if we were to say 20 was our new limit, 2031's the year we would hit that. The impact on the tax levy. So what I've done is, now we did this analysis before we did some of our adjustments. So we have what we presented on December 4th as the percentages. And then if we did the 20% all to be repaid from tax levy, so 2027 would go from 3.7 to 8.25. 2028 would go from 5.4 to 9.71. And the rest carry through kind of up and down like all our tax levies usually do. We also did an analysis of if the projects selected were available for 75% DC or rate funding and what that would look at for the tax levy. So those numbers are there. 2027 would go from 3.7 to 4.85. 2028 would go from 5.4 to 6.49. And just one sec.
Councillor
No,
Bell?
they're not for some reason. One sec.
I don't know
there
whether you
they
want
go.
comments now, Mr. Mayor, or then, Heather, what's the best time for comments?
Do you want
I'm fine
comments?
with either, whatever the council wish.
Councillor Bell?
If you go one, well, actually, I have one more slide. I'm ahead of you in the pack, sorry.
Well, okay, one more slide. So an analysis, if the county of Brant were to increase its self-imposed annual repayment limit to 20, as I said, there'd be about 64,600,000 in additional debt capacity. The annual debt charge for that would be about 4.3 million to be paid from the operating budget from 2027 to 2052. And it's about somewhere between 4 and 5% on the tax levy if they're tax levy projects. So the benefits would be the opportunity to move projects forward that otherwise are currently later in our capital forecast, which also prevents those projects from being pushed further beyond or reprioritized. But there are a number of risks as well. Where am I? The risks are certainly that there's a few big projects out there, and I try not to pick on it, but I always come back to it. The Paris Water Pollution Control Plant, I would say we don't know for sure what that project is gonna cost us. So one of our concerns is that if that project is significantly more than we think it's gonna be, or if the federal provincial grant funding that we are planning for that project, that's a big risk for needing a fair bit of our self-imposed limit as it is. There's also uncertainty about the local contribution towards the new hospital. There's a good chance that at some point, we're probably going to need to commit some of our ARL to that. One of the interesting things in legislation about that is this is why I've always termed it as a contribution, because as soon as we make a commitment to the money on that, it becomes part of our debt calculations. And then also decisions on projects to move 2026 projects to be paid from debt other than from the tax levy. We've talked about that a few years in a row. Doing that to reduce our tax levy this year really just leaves us in a much worse position for next year if we don't keep building our tax levy contribution towards capital. Then the next year we have a bigger gap than we had this year to try to fill every year. So those are my comments on that model.
Councillor Bell?
Yeah, Heather, two Heathers, thank you, that was great. We don't have the physical capacity to spend $65 million in 2027, so the reality of it is that $65 million could be spread over a longer period of time. But what it does illustrate to me, I think, is there's tremendous more flexibility there than we perhaps have given ourselves credit for in the past. I'm not saying we should immediately go out and spend it, but I don't think we should discount the fact that if we went up to a 20% limit, it's not going to be the end of the world. If I look at the two tables before it, if we have projects that are partially paid by DCs, you know, there isn't a huge change in the ask of the community in comparison to the ability to provide them greater facility. So I'm not saying we do make decisions now, but it's good to know that that flexibility is there. And I would certainly be willing to move that we have 20% as our debt limit, recognising that all decisions on how we spend it come back through this horseshoe. We don't just go out and spend it willy-nilly. It will be consciously spent. But I do think we have to recognise that as we expand our tax base, particularly the commercial tax base around the 403, there's going to be a further benefit to that. I don't know whether we've reflected that in our long-term thinking, that we will be getting more and more tax revenue from our industrial base, which again helps to facilitate spending on facilities that our community, not just here in Paris, across the county, will benefit from. So thank you, that's really, really helpful.
Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, moving on, the next question that we were asked to look at was the affordable housing targets, what our targets are, how they were established, and what kind of money we'd be looking at to meet those. So most of this information is taken from when the city presented their update in January, so I imagine there'll probably be another update this January, which will change these figures a bit, but this is the most recent number we had. So at the time, the city was reporting that their most recent project was estimated to cost $361,000 per unit for their Schellers Lane project, and that their average percentage of costs for construction between grant funding was 12%, but each project, some projects had a lot of funding, some projects had minimal funding, so. So based on the calculations in their report, there are 93 units allocated for the County of Brant, estimated cost of $350,000 per unit, grants of approximately $6.5 million, which would lead to county contribution of $25,950,000. This is in addition to the Trillium Way works that we've already done. And they also note this does not include the property acquisition. So this is on the basis that we come forward with a site that's ready to go. So the shared services agreement committed the County of Brant to contributing $15.1 million towards municipally built affordable housing units. Approximately $11,500,000 will be paid by the county for the Trillium Way project. We don't have the final bill from the city yet for that. Once we get that and we pay for the Trillium Way project, we will be entering into a property management agreement for that facility. So it'll be shared ownership between the city and the county. And then once all the maintenance and repair costs are taken off the top of the rental, we do expect that we will have a net revenue from the rentals, but we don't have a number as to what that revenue might look like. We do have a similar arrangement for one of the John Noble Home apartments. Do you know how many units that is? No. The John Noble Home apartments, it's not a giant revenue number. I think our net revenue is like 20,000-ish. Yeah.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Heather, your last sentence there, it is expected that. There's still some element of uncertainty there?
Well, really the uncertainty is what the property management agreement will look like and how much money we need to be putting away for maintenance and repairs and upgrades to the facilities. So we expect there will be, but we don't have an exact number yet.
Does the shared services agreement not cover this?
Well, the agreement we've entered into a few agreements revolving this Trillium Way project. And at the end of the day, we are supposed to get 50% of both of those buildings. But then all the costs of the property maintenance and repairs and reserve fund for that comes out before any revenues get allocated. So we just don't have the details of this agreement yet because we haven't started negotiations on the agreement following the works because we still haven't paid for the works.
Yeah.
Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So in regards to those you know, uncertain of maintenance and repair calculations. As far as Trillium is concerned, that should still be in a warranty period, should it not? Do we know how long that warranty period on the new building? So there really shouldn't be any cost to that, should there?
No, but I don't know if, because we're getting ownership of both buildings, if the existing one there also is gonna impact how much we need to be putting away for maintenance and repairs.
Like.
Because there's the two buildings, right?
Right.
And when we entered into it, we did some property transferring, and at the end of the day, both the city and county are supposed to have half ownership of each, so.
Right, okay. Well, there was just something in our package the other night from the city of Brantford in regards to, I think it's windows and doors for patios of the older building there.
Yeah, and I expect, I would imagine that they should be putting money away for both buildings, because there will be works eventually required,
Right,
you know.
right, but for the new building, I'm assuming the first couple of years or so, it should be
Yeah,
warranted?
it should be, it should help decrease like the overall amount we need to
Right.
put in, rather than wait 5 years and then have to put a bunch of money in,
Oh,
right?
100%, okay,
Yeah.
yep, no, I just wanted, thank you.
Councillor Kyle, and then Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Heather. So on the topic of Trillium Way, do we have an anticipated timeline for when we might see that final bill and all those final numbers?
We've been kind of waiting day by day. We're expecting it any time, but
Okay.
it just hasn't arrived yet.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Question, I think, probably to Alison. I understand 2026 is the year we renegotiate the shared services agreement.
Through your worship to Councillor Bell. That's correct. I think we may propose that we move that to 2027, just with a temporary one-year extension. But as of today, yes, that is the anticipation.
So my request would be then, as we go into that renegotiation, that this question that we really can't answer yet, because it appears like we didn't actually get around to detailing it sufficiently. If we're going to spend another $26 million for another 93 units, I'd like to understand the certainty that the revenue from those 93 units, if we're paying for them, comes back to us, because it'll amount to, you know, a big part of the cost of providing these facilities.
Any other questions? Okay, Heather.
Thank you. Oops. There was one question raised about the public engagement survey, about how many people answered the multiple choice questions. And I'm advised that they are mandatory questions, so there wasn't an opportunity to skip that. So there would have been 216 respondents to each of those. Okay, so the next piece is actually, Heather, do you want to do these ones? The updated model.
Through the mayor, so the day after we first spoke to you on December 4th, we received the OPP final numbers, and they were higher than I had estimated. I had included a 5% increase, and they came in at 12.34. So we've had to add an additional $435,000 to the proposed 2026 budget for those projections. And then I guess the offset to that is what was presented to County Council that came from Social Services Committee included additional investments. Those investments were not approved by the city, so it makes a $162,566 reduction in what the county we had initially included. So that has been taken. So the overall increase to the drivers to what was proposed is $366,962. Sorry. Yeah, oops, I'm one ahead of myself, sorry. So the starting, yes. So the starting point has been adjusted by both the OPP and the social services amounts to get us to the LTFP model that's been provided to you in the larger sheet. So it shows the proposed residential tax rate increase on the median home at 5.04% in the bottom line there for 2026. And then just the following few slides are update to the drivers with the update to the OPP and the social services line. So that overall, it has like a levy to levy increase of 8.3, but on the median home, after the application of growth, we're looking at 5% or 5.04.
Any questions on those slides? No. Councillor Bell?
Heather was talking about things that we need to give guidance to Heather and the team on, which ultimately comes back to you. I'm thinking particularly about the hospital reserve contribution. And just appreciate feedback from my colleagues. Last year when we talked about this, I thought we had agreed to the mechanism that said every year we'll add 1% to the tax levy. And Heather said that's not quite what we agreed. We agreed that last year we would add 1%, but we did not make a judgment about the years to come. I thought we had, and I don't know whether my colleagues were in the same place as me, or whether they thought, as Heather had suggested, it was just that 1 year where it would be 1%, and we would not be accumulating that 1% over time. So clarification would be helpful, and if my colleagues thought differently, I'm in the minority.
Councillor Oakley has something to say before we call on staff.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, my understanding was somewhere in the middle there, where I believe last year we committed to doing the 1% and each year reviewing whether or not we would add an additional 1% based on the tax impact of that year, or whether or not we could afford to add a second iteration or another 1% cumulatively in that year.
I had lunch with the hospital people this week, and they brought up the 1%. They thought it was very good that we did that. And they made it sound to me like they understood that it was going to be 1% as we go forward. Yeah. Yes.
Do 1%, yeah.
Councillor House.
Through you, Mayor, I just want to clarify my understanding of that, because Councillor Bell just reaffirmed cumulative, meaning that it's not just 1% 1 year, it's 1% in year 1, 2% in year 2, 3% in year 3. That's what you mean, right?
What I mean is that the 1% from last year is already baked in. That's the starting point. Now we had another 1%. And then effectively it's 2% relative to 2 years ago.
Right.
And then we do the same the next year, and it's 3% relative
Right.
to the starting point.
Each year gaining an additional 1%,
And-
which is,
and from Heather's calculation, that got us to 82 million after 10 years, which is close to the number I think we need to be thinking about. If we go the route that is included in this long-term financial plan, we'll only get to 10 million, if I remember correctly from Heather's numbers. So we'll be a long way short. And I think, you know, it should be a legacy, I think, of this council, that we saw the need now and started to prepare now, recognising it's less painful now. It will feel like less pain as we go through, you know, and hopefully, you know, by the time we've gone down a couple of years down the track, we will actually have confirmation that a hospital is going to be built. We are making the first steps. The request for land has gone out. I think it serves us well to take this step on behalf of the community.
Councillor House.
thanks, Mr. Mayor. If I could just continue what I was starting on. I wanted to just double check your conversation with the hospital folks during your lunch, and they seem to acknowledge the 1% that we did in 2025. Is their expectation or their vision of it that it's each year it's the same 1%, or that it grows by 1% every year? And I'm just, the reason I'm trying to get specific on this is I agree with Councillor Bell that we certainly have to start filling the piggy bank for this project, but at the same time, the project's very much a moving target, and while we have to contribute every year, I'm a little concerned about us keep hitting the taxpayer too much for a project that is not very clear at this point. Although I don't dispute continuing to do the same 1%. Just my point of view. But could you clarify
Yeah, I believe that they understood it would be 1% and then another 1%. I don't know that they got any deeper than that. They just thought it was a very clever way, since we don't have to pay to the end of the project, that we can keep our money in our own accounts, knowing that we've said that this is what it's for. But I think as you said, it's not all clear right now. I think asking for the land, which we did this week, is going to, nail down where it's going to be. Then there'll be renderings, and there'll be budgets, and there'll be, there'll be legacy funds, and there's going to be people they can give to it, they can leave things to it. So I think that in the next little while, and I would think a couple of months, there's going to be real pictures and real places, and then we can really know what we're talking about. I still don't think we actually know exactly what we're talking about yet, but I think it's coming soon. Councillor Miller and then Councillor McAlpine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question to Heather then. So the 5% that we're looking at right now, that's already baked into the cake. That's without the decision packages. And then if we put on 1% or 2% for the hospital, that goes on top of the 5%, yes?
So the 1% that we've already put on this year, that's built into the model going forward. So if we put another 1% to come to essentially the 2%, that's an additional cost.
Okay, so not included right now are the decision packages?
The decision packages, the major study items need to be included in. Most of those don't hit 2026 anyways, but those aren't included in the model either.
And not included are the additional requests for social services? That's not included in that 5% yet? That's what it sounds
No,
like.
the additional request for social services, because the way the agreement works, once they provide us their budget numbers, that becomes our budget. So that's
That
been
could go up
adjusted.
too. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry, Councillor McAlpine.
No, I was on the same line as David. I am concerned that in a very tough, we have a large percentage of people that aren't even paying their taxes right now. And I'm concerned about increasing our budget too much. So I would be hesitant to increase that extra 1% on top of that. That's just my view.
Councillor Pierce?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, through you. I'm on the same page as Councillor Bell here, and my understanding was the fact that we were doing the plus 1%, and when you had said that number around 80-something million, that's what I recall us being there after the 10 years. I think we need to, and I appreciate the fact that it is tough times, I get that, but I think the reality is this hospital is coming. That I think is as a guarantee as you can get. Timeline is not set yet, but I would much rather have a 1%, have a 1%, have a 1%. All of a sudden, we're 6 years down the road and we go, you know what, I know we should have, but now we're gonna hit you with a 6%. I think it's a much smarter way to do it, the way that it's talked about here. At the end of it all, yes, it is gonna be money out of the taxpayer's pocket, but I think if we spread that out, oops, good thing there's a lid on that, my apologies. If we spread that out over the number of years, the way we're going with the 1%, I think that's a smart way to do it, and I'm in favor of that.
Anyone else? Oh, okay, Heather?
Then the next piece is the in-camera piece.
That's right. So that's item 5, and I'm going to look for a motion to go in camera. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Kyle, all those in favor? And we'll go in camera. Thank you. The next thing to do is to ratify Councillor Pierce. Okay, and it's seconded by Councillor Kyle. Any other conversation? Everything's good? Do you want to read it, Spencer, or are we just going to vote on what we?
The motion on the table is that council approve the purchase of lands adjacent to the Vickers Lane landfill and that the funding for this project be funded from debentures.
That's all it has to say. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Heather, do you want to continue with your report?
Thank you, through the mayor. So there's a few sections of recommendations coming forward for council's consideration. At the end of each section, I do have staff online ready to present any changes to our LTFP model. So we'll go through them piece by piece. Unless council would like to do it another way, I am recommending that we go through one by one. I've put specific recommendations based on staff's recommendation on here for consideration, and then just any matters that can't be decided today will be referred to the mayor for consideration of including or not including as part of his budget coming forward in January. So the first is going through some of the major master plan, major study action items. So as I reported before, one of the major changes we made to how we do it this year is that when council approves one of the master plans, they're not just automatically built into the budgets. It does come to the long-term financial plan to take another look at. So the first of those being the housing needs assessment, and that identified 4 different projects: housing needs community improvement plan, housing financial incentive study, rental registry feasibility study, and the housing needs assessment update that we have to do every 5 years for the federal funding. The overall impact is on 5 different years outlined below. It's a relatively small impact for each, and it doesn't have nothing that's going to move the needle in terms of major tax increases or changing the actual plan itself. But if council is supportive of these initiatives, I've put the recommendation up on the screen, and council can consider that, or they can make amendments as needed.
Councillor Oakley,
Through the mayor, I'll move the recommendation.
seeking a seconder. Councillor Bell. Councillor Pierce?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And I'm in support of this, but I'm just wondering, like, we're talking a 5-year span here. Is there any way that we can, there's really only 1 year that's bigger, but is there any way to smooth it out, so to speak?
I would refer that to Alicia Dijak, the General Manager of Development Services.
Through your worship to Councillor Pierce's question, there's obviously always the ability to wiggle things around within the 10-year capital forecast. These were just items which council will recall when the housing needs assessment came forward, there were short-term, medium-term, and then longer-term goals. And so the 2027 would be the end of those short-term goals. Should council wish, we can push some of them back.
Okay, no, as I say, it's not a huge on its own, but we're cumulative, right? Just, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we have it on the floor. We have a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you. Continuing on with the solid waste management master plan action items. So they had a number of projects, obviously the more significant ones coming later in the long-term financial plan. The projects include automatic scale house software, solid waste promotion and education, solid waste audit program, curbside optimization and funding program, automated curbside collection, and organic waste collection program. They're outlined, oops, keep going here. The impacts on each year are outlined on the current slide and have not been included in the LTFP model to date. And the recommendation is here for council's consideration, and Dave was available to answer any questions.
Questions? No questions. Okay, Councillor Miller,
So moved.
looking for a seconder. Councillor McAlpine, all those in favor? Opposed? And carried.
The final one coming from major studies this year was the Asset Management Plan Financial Strategy. So I went into this in more detail on December the 4th. It's a proposal to ensure that future year budgets are structured so that we fully fund what our financial strategy says we need to be putting in terms of asset management. It is expected that once we get closer to each year, most of that funding gap will be taken up with actual asset management projects, but it just kind of smooths out the overall long-term financial plans so that we know that each year we are committing to doing work on our assets. The recommendation is just that we create the reserve. I think I reported last year that we might have approximately 100,000 going into that reserve this year. I suspect that even some of the works we just approved on the solid waste plan are going to take up that capacity. So any transfer, any change impacting 2026 is going to be very, very minimal for this year.
Councillor Miller.
While we're on the topic of asset management plan, my understanding is 43 million is the average amount for the next 10 years?
Yes.
And we need to spend on average 43 million. And what, if I look at 2026, what are we looking at spending?
One sec, I can get the exact, let me grab my last meeting's presentation. So the 43 million average was an average over the 10 years. The financial strategy outlined a starting point for 2026 of 39.5 million. And, one sec, when we first presented, I think we were 135,000 short of that. So we were right around 38 million, 38 million, and so now we are back up, we'll be back up to that 39 point, that exact number, possibly a little bit over that by the time we get through today.
Okay, I do like the idea of a reserve. I thought it was a smart idea. I don't know who come up with that, but pat yourself on the back, because there will be years where it's, as we can see from the graph, it fluctuates quite a bit. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Bell?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Heather. Just looking at the graph that's on there, the years 2032 and 2034, by which time I'm 80 years old, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. But right now we're already carrying 10% and 8% respectively as forecast property tax increases. This will add considerably to that. Will your model show us what the numbers will be?
Yeah, well, my model right now doesn't show what the numbers will be. What happens though is because some of those years go down, then the next year goes up like way, way higher because you had where in reality, once we get closer to those years, we're not expecting to decrease one year by 5%.
but my
And so we
point-
won't need to increase by 10% the year after that.
Yeah, my point is that I'll take 2032 as a good example. It looks like we should be spending about 47 million. And it looks like if I follow the orange line, we're only going to spend 40. So there's going to be 7 million put into reserve in that year, which does not feature in the big spreadsheet we've got now. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yes.
So that 7%, not all of it translates into tax levy, but the 10% that we're forecasting now would be, I'm going to guess 15. But
Well, and it depends on, once again, funding sources. Smoothing out the years that are supposed to go negative will now be slightly positive. Like, it'll smooth itself out as we go forward. But, yeah, like, we are going to have to invest more money in those later years. And we'll be dealing with that, like when we face the 13% increase for this year, we'll be doing the work continuously to make things work in the
But
program.
it will be possible for us to model this green addition in your long-term financial plan.
Yeah, I think Heather's working on that. Heather Bailey will be able to present that at the end of this session.
Okay, I know it's a long time away, but
Yeah.
time has a habit of catching up on you.
Any other questions? No? Okay. We have it on the floor? Yeah, Councillor, sorry? Yeah, Councillor Coleman is going to, and Councillor Pierce. All those in favor? Okay, thank you.
Okay, and at this point, I would ask Heather Bailey to put forward the updated model. So Gary, can we switch over?
Wow, you can't, it's gonna be a hard one. Councillor Coleman, could you read the third line for me? I'm kidding, I'm kidding, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. Oh, chance it out.
Okay, so we have modeled out, so what we're looking at currently, based on what we've approved, 2026 would be a 5.35% increase, 2027's 5.61, 2028, 5.56, 2029, 2.28, 2030, 3.36, 2031, 1.90, 2032, 6.38, 2033, -2, 2034, 1.91, and 2035, 2.33. So as I was suggesting, that piece about the asset management does do a great deal of smoothing out of those peaks and valleys of the budget that we don't know what projects we need filled with.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just looking at the table for 2027, it's gone from 3.7 to 5.6, and I think the more solid numbers we had there were from the solid waste management project and the planning project, which I think only accounted for about 0.2%. So already the asset management reserve is having quite an impact. I mean, it's added probably 1.5%. I think it's right, but it begins to give a sense of the impact of that reserve being built.
Okay, there's no further questions on where we're at now. Gary, can we put the presentation back up? So there are 8 change requests being brought forward this year for council's consideration. I believe there's departmental staff available to answer to each of those. The change requests represent a total of $1,081,000, or a 1.23% increase on the tax levy. So the first one being cybersecurity enhancements. This results largely from recommendations from our insurer. Without getting into details that would affect the security of our systems, I'm happy to answer any questions on this project.
Questions? Seems quite obvious, really. Councillor Miller?
Have we obtained, yeah, we've obtained cyber, not cybersecurity, what do you call it?
Insurance.
Anyways, the insurance, yeah, yes?
Yes.
Do things like this, do they help with, do they have any impact on the premiums? To your knowledge?
Things like this will impact our premiums, but they, more importantly, will impact our eligibility for insurance in the
Getting it
future.
in the first, okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Heather, are we going to vote on all of these separately?
Yep, that was my proposal, that we would go through each one separately.
Everyone's okay with doing that? So I'm going to need someone to put it on the floor then. Councillor Pierce, Councillor Howes. Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Elliott, did you have a question? Councillor Miller? Did you have a question? No? Okay. Heather, we'll go to number 2 then.
Okay, the second change request is additional attachments for roads equipment. And that'll be representing 136,000 capital investment for 2026.
And I'll get a motion to get it on the floor, please. Councillor Coleman and Councillor Kyle. Discussion, questions? Everyone's okay with number 2? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Recommendation number 3 is for additional survey equipment, also for the operations department, I believe.
Get it on the floor, Councillor Bell. And I need a seconder. Councillor Bell, you.
Just a question to operations staff. Is this going to assist in our ability to do locates on our own, with our own staff, or is this something different from the locate proposal?
We have staff here to speak to that. Just for Spencer's well-being here, Councillor Bell, you put that on the floor. Councillor Oakley seconded it.
Through the mayor, no, this is something a little bit different. This is to pick up survey data in the field. We have 2 different teams in operations who are using the current piece of equipment, the GPS unit that we use for surveying. We have a design team and a construction team, and now that we're doing more of these activities in-house, we're juggling the use of that. So we're just proposing here to get a second unit ahead of when that first unit is due for replacement, and staggering the purchase of those units so that we have 2 to share.
So there's no additional operating cost saving?
No.
Any other questions for number 3, the request? So on the floor, it has a seconder. All those in favor of number 3? Thank you. Takes us to number 4. Get down the floor. Councillor Pierce and Councillor Oakley. Thank you.
Okay, number 4 is an additional Paris Parks landscape trailer, and once again, Parks and Recreation staff is here if you have any questions.
So on the floor, Kathy's here. Does anyone have any questions as to what it is and what it's going to be used for and whether we need it? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. All right, number 5.
Number 5 came forward as a delegation to council earlier in the year, requesting a Mount Pleasant Park multi-sport pad at a total cost of $275,000. Parks and Rec staff can probably speak to the proposal if needed, but this was something that was referred by council to the long-term plan. Number 6 is a proposal from the library, library services for seniors and newcomers. It does have a 0.1 full-time employee impact, and I believe the library CEO and board chair are here if there are any questions.
My mic's not on. Councillor Howes and Councillor Pierce. Questions? Councillor Pierce, you're first.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It doesn't show what percent increase it is.
Oops, I'm sorry. Do we know that off? Looks like it's probably about a 0.2, but. Sorry, 0.03%.
Thank you. Any other comments or concerns? It's on the floor, has a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? It passes. Oh. Okay, we need another vote then. All those in favor? Opposed? Passes. Yeah, passes. Thank you. Number 7, Lansdowne Children's Center.
This one came forward as well as a delegation to council and was referred last year to this year's budget process.
Put on the floor, Councillor Oakley and Councillor Coleman. Any discussion on Lansdowne? Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Heather, do we have a construction schedule for this project now? Do we know when the money is needed?
I haven't heard anything updated since they came in November. I'm not sure what they're looking at. Maybe Allison.
Through your worship to Councillor Bell, I don't have the presentation in front of me from last month, but I believe that they're planning on starting in 2027. And they're looking for the total funding over a 4-year period.
I'm supportive of providing the money to meet the construction schedule. If the construction schedule had gone back a couple of years, then I think we should have pushed our contribution back a couple of years. But if it's on target and it's going to take 4 years, I'm supportive.
Okay. We can certainly get a hold of Rita Marie and get the construction schedule. They're on schedule. Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to voice my support for this. I think it's a vitally important service that we help contribute to in our community.
Yep. Yeah, it's good. Good news story. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Thank you. Recommendation 8, which is the Woodland Cultural Center.
So again, this was a presentation to council, and it was also a matter referred from the last budget process.
Okay, Councillor Oakley has it on the floor, looking for a seconder. Councillor Coleman, any questions? Councillor Miller?
I'd like to make an amendment to it. That being that we, instead of going for the full million, I would like to see that reflective of what the city of Brantford has contributed, which is also 1 million, and that we contribute the same amount but proportional to what the city, so not unlike our social services or John Noble Home or paramedic percentages are. So that would be around a third of what the city gave. I wouldn't have the exact number, but that's what I'm proposing in the amendment.
Yeah, Councillor Pierce?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd be happy to second that amendment because I was actually going to go there as well. Councillor Miller did ask the question when they were in here for their presentations as to why $1 million from the city and $1 million from the county. So I full-heartedly support it, but not at the $1 million.
Yeah. Councillor Oakley?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the amendment, I won't be supportive of the amendment. I think you could extend the same logic to Six Nations of the Grand River has contributed $1 million, in which case we should contribute roughly 8. So I think it's, if we're going to have, be taking reconciliation seriously, we should be supporting this at the full cost as requested. Thank you.
Any more conversation? Okay, Councillor Pierce?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm, through you to Councillor Oakley, I don't agree with that statement. It's got nothing to do with the fact of supporting the reconciliation. We do support that. It is very important and we are behind it. I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that we're not. What I am simply saying is we absolutely will pay our share, but I am not in support of the $1 million. So let's not gray the water here that we are not in support of the overall cause here, but I am not in support of it at $1 million.
Okay. Councillor Miller, were you proposing that we use the same formula that we do for the percentages for the John Noble home and things like that?
Yes.
Okay, and your seconder knows that? Okay, any other questions? All those in favor of the amendment? Okay, and then put it on the floor for the ask. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to call it, those that are against. There you go, Councillor Oakley. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to the original ask. Is it on the floor yet, Spencer? No. Motion's been made? Okay, the motion as amended is on the floor. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, it wasn't on the floor. I need to put it on the floor. Councillor Oakley and Councillor Coleman, as amended. Councillor Kaya, you want to speak to it? Do you want to finally vote for it? Okay. Councillor Pierce, do you want to speak to it? Councillor Miller wants to speak to it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, it's presented in the light of reconciliation. I don't see that at all. I see it as a request from a neighbor, and in my experience is if a neighbor asks something, you do what you can to accommodate him, and this is a request from a neighbor. So from my perspective, there's no talk of reconciliation for this. I don't think there should be, but that's my opinion.
Okay. Any other comments? Call the vote. All those in favor? As amended? Opposed? Okay, good. Number, Councillor Pierce.
Is it possible to get that, what that number would be, sitting at the, you know, the 28%?
Yeah. So approximately, we'd be looking at somewhere between 83,000 and 83,500. So it's in that range. We're just going to put that in for now. And the final number will be once we do the budget, we'll have it all exact out.
Is this again a 4-year period?
Well, what I'm recommending is that because we're ending this term of council this year, we would commit to the 1-year contribution this year, and the next term of council would
On the
decide.
assumption, but on the assumption it's a 4-year period?
On the assumption that we'd be paying over 4 years, yes.
Yeah. Okay, we're now going on to Cleaver Road. I'm sorry?
Is there an update to the model? Or is that too soon, Heather?
Oh,
I thought the next slide said would be an update.
Yep, just 1 minute, we'll have the update. Gary, can we? Heather, can we just confirm once Heather's made that adjustment for the? Okay, so I believe these are the current new numbers. It would take us right now for 2026 to 6.39, and then 2027, 4.59, 2028, 5.54, 2029, 2.28, 2030, 3.36, and most of the decisions we made are in the shorter term for this last section, so.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised with 2027, because I thought the number we start, after the last round of thinking or decisions, we were already at 5 point something.
Us increasing 2026 has now decreased the increase needed for 2027.
Thank you.
So once again, more decisions we make tonight, the numbers will continue to go up and down, but that's how that plays.
Heather.
Okay, if there's no more question on that, Gary, can we go back to the slides? So the next matter that was referred to the long-term financial plan is the Cleaver Road Bridge Staff Report 029525. That was presented to council first in October and was referred here. So included in here is the recommendation from that staff report. We did distribute as part of the addendum some additional financial and timing information that was provided to council through a briefing note. And we have also updated the options and what years are impacted by which option. So option one, vehicular rehabilitation to an existing one-lane bridge, has a total cost of approximately $3 million. The engineering and design could be done in 2026 with construction in 2028. So the impacts of it would be that. Option two, replacement with a two-lane bridge, has a total cost of approximately $3.7 million. Engineering, same thing, engineering design would be 2026, construction in 2028. So the yearly impacts on the model are outlined there. Option three, conversion to a pedestrian bridge. Engineering design and construction would all be proposed in 2026. And as noted in my yellow note on the side, there are additional costs that would play out in 2027 and 2028. And option four, replacing it with a pedestrian bridge, has a total cost of $735,000, engineering design in 2026, and construction expected in 2027. So there is operations staff available to answer any questions on the report, the original report, or this project.
Okay, motion to get on the floor, please. Councillor Bell and Councillor McAlpine. Well, just to get it on, we can go with whatever option you want to talk about. There's also the staff report. We can either support the staff report, or we can choose an option and start voting on things. Councillor Bell.
I'll move the staff report.
Okay, I think that's what Councillor McAlpine was going. So Councillor Bell and Councillor McAlpine. Any other questions? Councillor Miller?
Yeah, I won't support the staff report or staff option. And I think, what is this? Could we just review what that is? It's to close it, and I don't know if they had the pedestrian bridge in theirs in that staff report. I think they did. What option would that be if I'm looking at the briefing note that we have in front of us, 4.1?
So through the mayor to Councillor Miller, that would be option 3.
Okay.
And then I believe the recommendation in the original staff report gives direction to staff that, because option 3, we would need to look at the bridge and see exactly what those costs are through a little bit more pre-design work, call it. And the recommendation would give us the authority, I guess, or direction to, if it wasn't worthwhile to replace the bridge, or sorry, convert the bridge from a vehicular to pedestrian bridge, then we would proceed with the option 4 in the briefing note, which is replacement.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, okay, so I won't support it. I am very supportive of option 2, the two-lane bridge replacement, which, if you look at the lifespan, it is 75 years. It's actually good value for what we would get, 75 years. I think, well, I will say, looking at the bridge today, which isn't there, but if it were today, do we need it? I would say on a normal day, no. I don't think it's a requirement. But when you look at the lifespan, we see a lot of development in the area, even in the Highland Estates area. They've got Douglas Estates. There's a lot of building going on in there, a lot of housing. We got a lot of industry coming as well. So I think that bridge will be necessary as we go along. But to me, the big issue, and I've said it before, is what do we do when Highway 24 is closed? And we have a lot of things in place. We spend a lot of money on things that we don't need on a day-to-day basis. We just need them in case of. And ambulance is a good example, fire stations, fire training, OPP. We need those in case for when things happen. And it's the same with the Highway 24. We know Highway 24 closes quite regularly. Unfortunately, it's the nature of the beast and the way people drive. There's lots of accidents. And we need this as a straightforward method to get around that. And so there's that aspect. And again, like I say, I think looking out over the 75 years, there's a clear need for this bridge. So I won't be supporting the staff recommendation. And I would like to see us support a two-lane bridge. So leave it at that. I think we've heard lots over the last few months.
Any other questions or concerns? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will not be supporting the staff report. I really believe we need to replace this bridge now. At first, I didn't think so. And then I kept thinking about the development that we're going to see on Bethel Road. And we need another access point to get traffic off Bethel Road, especially when 24 shuts down. And all the development that's going to come there in 24, that is a good north-south corridor. And doing it now, like Councilor Miller says, 75-year span, I fully support that. Unfortunately, I couldn't be here 2 weeks ago because I was sick. But one thing that was wrong in the report, and I did talk to Heather about it, was a staff, somebody had put in there that Middleport Bridge had been removed. But Middleport Bridge was removed and replaced with a new bridge. It wasn't all bridges that were removed. It was replaced with a new bridge, and I believe this one should be done the same way. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor House.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I just wanted to chime in a little bit. I don't often go against a staff recommendation, but in this case, I will be. And I share the same perspectives as the two rural councillors who have spoken this morning, and I've talked to some people who live in that area, and some people that live in that area are very vocal, and some are less vocal, but still need to be heard. And I do support the direction that's indicated by previous councillor messages.
Councillor Oakley.
Through Mr. Mayor, I am going to support the staff recommendation. I have a lot of confidence in the staff that we've hired, both on the operations side of things to make accurate traffic management plans for the long term. I have also faith in our emergency services departments who have, there was some concern over whether or not emergency services would be impacted by this. They're adamant that it is not, so I'm very confident in supporting the staff decision.
Any other comments? Any other comments? Okay, I just have one comment that when the delegation came the other day, they said, we were mandated and we were elected by people to listen to the people. And I think there are people that speak loud and there are people that speak quietly. And I've had just as many people that want the bridge closed quietly. It's just like what we did with the bridge down by the mill there. Mr. Gatward's house where he grew up, Dutch's place there, where we made it a fishing bridge. We put benches and garbage pails, a proper place for you to turn around. And they've been getting great use out of that bridge just by sitting there, biking there. They can still get over on their motorcycles, still get over on their bikes. So although you can't drive a car across it because it is kind of falling apart, and there's a little bit of a waterfall into that bridge. So every day it's getting a little bit more dangerous, and this one doesn't have a waterfall, but there are people in the same neighborhood. And I think the recreational piece, people are saying that they're using the area around that bridge for dog walking and things like that. So not that my life changes any, whether we leave it up or whether we don't, but when you're told that you've been elected to represent the people, you should represent all people, not just loud people, all people. So I'll be supporting the staff recommendation. Councillor Miller.
I wasn't gonna say this, but you did bring it up, on the Mill Street Bridge, we did close it, and that said that in the staff report. What it did not say is why. And the reason we didn't replace that bridge is because there's a dam associated with it, and the cost of rehabilitating that dam was just excessive for the county. That's the reason why we didn't go with that. We don't have that issue here. And as far as, what people want, yeah, I understand people around the bridge probably want it closed, I would too. I think we gotta look a little bit beyond that. I think we have to look at what's good for the county as a whole. And if you can't see what's coming, then we need to consider all that is coming. And for the value that we would get from option 2, I don't think you can beat it, so anyways. But I just wanted to bring that up, Mill Street Bridge one, and why we didn't rehabilitate it.
That's right. But, and I think we have to be aware that lots is coming, but I'm not sure that the people that are coming don't want to fish, don't want to sit on the bridge and talk to their friends. So I'm not sure they all want to drive across a rickety bridge. So we will call the vote. So this is to support the staff recommendation, which is before us. All those in favor of the staff recommendation? Opposed? And it passes. Is that right? Passes. Okay. That's the end of it, isn't it, Heather?
Nope, we're not yet. I don't know that we need to put it up again. That one isn't a huge impact, so we can maybe make the rest of the decisions and then we'll bring up the updated version of the plan. So the next topic is the new hospital local contribution. We spoke a bit about this earlier this morning. I put forward the various models on the options. The model that Councillor Bell was speaking to is the is the 2025 model, the middle one, additional 1% special levy each year. That was the option that gets to 82. The reason I had put forward that we could consider a one-year pause on that was partly because of the status of the project not having firm times or numbers yet, and also considering the if we put the Brant County Power contribution from that investment fund, then we could pause, not stop making the incremental increases, but obviously the more we do early on, the easier it'll be to grow this contribution. So staff supportive of whatever option council wants to take on this. We were just trying to be cognizant of the fact that this project is kind of in the same position now that it was last year, as far as we know.
Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just want to understand on the big sheet, we have the hospital contribution as 870, and on this sheet it's 975.
Yeah, between models, so now 1% is 875, so it would be a small adjustment just to keep that 1%. But yeah, on the big sheet, when we first modeled it out, it was based on last year, 870 was the number, but we would increase it each year based on what 1% is in that given year.
So the 1% brings it to the 975.
875.
It says 975
Sorry, on what sheet?
in our big package here.
Oh, that's because we did have a contribution. So in 2025, we had a contribution from a previous year when we split the grant money. So 975 is where we were at in 2025.
Got it. Thank you for that. I'm not confused anymore, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Oakley and then Councillor House.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, are we looking to deal with the two recommendations that are in front of us individually and in the order they're presented currently? So that being the $10 million from Brant County Power first, and then the 1% levy second.
That's how I envisioned us having this discussion, but whatever council wants to put on the table is.
I'm comfortable moving the first recommendation here, that we put the $10 million from Brant County Power Investment Fund allocated towards the local contribution. Yada, yada, yada.
Councillor Oakley Councillor Kyle thinks that's a good idea for your second or two, so. Any other discussion on the 10? Yep, Councillor Bell and then Councillor Miller.
Just for clarity, so taking the motion as written, we add $10 million now. Do we then not add any additional tax levy?
Well, that's why I've split it into two different motions, so we can make the decision on the 10 million, and then we can decide whether or not to increase the annual contribution.
Okay. I would support adding $10 million in.
Okay, Councillor Miller, you're next, then Councillor Howes, and then Councillor Pierce.
Okay, well, I've said it before, so I'll be a broken record. I don't support cannibalizing the Brant County Power investment for the hospital. The city of Hamilton, I think they went through their power investment fund through about 5 years. That's how long it took them to spend it all. And I know there's always pressure to use that money for this, for that. I can tell you right now, I don't know what the needs will be in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years' time, but there will be more needs then than there are today. And I'm not saying the hospital project isn't a good use of money. It's just that the 10 million, when you're taking money from the Brant County Power Investment Fund, we have to come up with more property tax dollars to replace the investment on that money, and I don't want to lose that. We know that property taxes are a regressive tax. Not all tax dollars are the same. Income tax, it's sort of a progressive tax. The more you make, the more you pay. It makes sense. Even sales tax, consumption taxes, sometimes you have an option of maybe not consuming as much, so you don't spend as much, so you don't. But the property taxes are the worst. If you do not pay those property taxes, we take your house, we take your business, whatever you've not made the property tax payments on. I would rather collect money from willing payers, such as investors, who borrow the money and then they pay us. It's just such a good use, such a good way to raise money for our operating costs, for our capital costs, that Brant County Power Investment Fund. So once we spend it, it's gone, it's taken away from future ratepayers, and we replace it with taxpayer dollars. It's, from a high perspective, it's not a good way to go.
Councillor Howes and then Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm of similar mind as Councillor Miller on this. For the benefit of people who are paying attention to this at home, I recall that the Brant County Power Fund is around 40 million, 45?
Closer to 30.
Closer to 30,
Yep.
okay. So even that underlines my point even more. To take $10 million or to allocate $10 million out of that 30-something million dollar fund, which I've always looked at as kind of a rainy day fund, and I'm not prepared right now to say that a hospital that's going to be built several years from now is the rainy day or emergency situation. I prefer to keep those funds where they are, and I don't support that particular approach.
Councillor Pierce, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support this in the sense that we've talked, as long as I've been on council, of doing something with that money. And it's stayed there, and it's stayed there, and it's stayed there, and it's stayed there. With us pulling 10 million out of that, it's not as if we're pulling 10 million, it's being spent today. It's still gonna be invested and accrue interest over the next 5-6 years-ish. And again, this gives us a good jump on where we're going to have to be with our share of this hospital. And again, what it's going to do, it's actually going to lessen the burden, in essence, on the taxpayer as we go forward by investing this. Or again, we're gonna get ourselves in a situation where we're down the road and we're asking for, 3 or 4% a year to try and catch up to where this has to be. So I'm in favor of pulling it. Again, it's not wiping it out, and I would probably have a different opinion if it was pulling the whole thing out. I would not be in favor of that. But that money has been sitting there for probably pushing 15 years now, collecting interest, and we've talked about using it, backed off, talked about using it, backed off. If we are going to use it for something, I think this is an ideal thing to use it for, because we're not talking a couple $1 million here. We're talking our share is gonna be probably in the range of $100 million by the time it's all done and said. This gives us a good start on that, and it's not coming out of the taxpayers' money.
Councillor Kyle, and then Councillor Oakley.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I agree with Councillor Pierce's comments. I'm supportive of contributing the 10 million from the Brant Power. Respectfully, I think this is exactly the rainy day project that I would be comfortable using it for. If you think about the long-term investment of something like a hospital, we all know that that hospital needed to be built yesterday. And once it is built, it's going to be a piece of infrastructure that supports the community for generations. So I am 100% supportive of doing that, because I also agree with Councillor Pierce that in the end, it does lessen the blow on the tax levy down the road.
Councillor Oakley.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify with staff here, as written, this money doesn't actually move anywhere. The use of it doesn't change until such time as the hospital is completed. And if the hospital doesn't happen, which help us if that doesn't happen, but if the hospital doesn't get built, then we continue using it. No harm, no foul.
Yeah, so the money will stay in the investment fund. It's just earmarked for this purpose. And it'll continue in, we'll be modeling it out as such. But the money doesn't change. The interest will still be used as it is now until we need to withdraw this for the completion of the project. Also, future councils could at some point elect to use this money for something else and take it out of the hospital contribution if something came up in that period they wanted to do that.
So to sort of continue my thought there, I think that, yeah, this is a good use of it. I think, part of getting that hospital to be moving forward, as has been sort of emphasized to us by the hospital board, is we have to prove to the province that we're willing and able to put up the local contribution. However, I completely agree with Councillor Miller in the terms of, this is yet another example of sort of provincial download of responsibility, where this type of thing should not at all be in the realm of what's managed and paid for by property taxes, or paid for by hoping that there's enough wealthy people in the area to donate to us, or companies to donate to us. It's a valuable provincial service that should be paid for by the provincial government. The whole local contribution idea is completely absurd. It should just be covered by the provincial government as it's their mandate. However, recognizing that we're within the system we're within, this is what we got to do in order to get the piece of infrastructure that we so desperately need. So that's my sort of 2 cents on the matter.
Any other comments before we call the vote? So the vote is to use the money that we have to put aside for the hospital, leaving it where it is, letting it do its interest thing and growing. And if we don't need it for 10 years, it sits there. And interest on $10 million over 10 years is a lot of money. And we don't have to worry about asking the taxpayer for any more right now. With that being said, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Noted. Thank you. And the second motion then, Heather, is?
So the second motion, as I've explained, what I framed it as was just continuing the 1% special levy. If council wants to put an additional 1% special levy on for 2026, they're certainly welcome to make that motion instead.
Let's get down the floor, Councillor Bell, and then you're going to speak to it. I need a seconder to get down the floor, Councillor Pierce. Okay, Councillor Bell.
The way it's written, Heather, I would see that this is an additional 1%, because the 1% from last year is already baked into your starting point. So this is saying let's add 1% to the tax bill.
Well, the way we broke it out on the tax bill, though, was as a special levy. So it was a 1% special levy. And yes, it's in our models, it's in our budget, but it would still just be a 1% special levy.
So you'd break it out again, and then...
It's exactly the same as was 2025. If we decide to go another one, it'll be a 2% special levy on this year's tax bill.
I don't know whether I could amend it to say, I think this ought to be a cumulative 1%, Can I make that amendment now?
I think you can, it's for
I'll
discussion.
move that if I can get a seconder.
Councillor Oakley is your seconder.
And if I could speak to it, I think I've been following this story for some time. My expectation is that a new hospital is going to cost us north of 2 billion, possibly 3 billion. If you translate that into what our share would be using the formula we talked about earlier, assuming there'll be some degree of individual donation and the hospital foundation will make some contribution as well, it's still going to turn into $100 to $150 million that we have to be prepared to spend. My guess is it'll be 10 years from now, so I think the time frame that Heather's done the analysis on is correct. If we have that extra 1% per year, then we get, I think, if I remember from Heather's numbers, we'll get to 91%. So we'll still be short, but at least it'll be manageably short at that time. So I think it's prudent for us to start that process now, in addition to having the $10 million set aside from the Brant County Power Fund. So I will definitely support my own motion.
Comments? Councillor Miller and then Councillor House.
I don't want to tie anyone to, this is what you're going to pay, this is what you're going to pay. I think we keep it at 1%. And each year we look at it, because we are looking at a 5, 6, 7. I think you have to look at it in terms of what the overall tax increase is. There's a very nice piece in the report from December 4th about public engagement. And I actually did read it, and what was interesting was, but we already knew this, was there's not a lot of experts out there on the budget. And I got that, and a lot of people will make comments on one-off, well, we need a new hospital. There was a lot of comments on that, but there was also a lot of comments about, we're really struggling out here. And people may not be experts on municipal budgets and budget processing, but what they are experts on is their own finances, at least as far as how they're being impacted. And there was a lot of comments I seen about people really finding it hard to make ends meet. So that's why I think we got the 1%, but I don't want to tie future councils to, we're just going to keep increasing this 1% a year, not being aware of where it lands in the overall picture.
Any other comments? Councillor House, I think you were next, and then Councillor Pearson and Councillor Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to, just through you. I'm of similar mind again with Councillor Miller on this one. I was prepared to commit us to a 1% special levy again this year to contribute close to $1 million towards the hospital fund. I'm cognizant of the fact that we're 10 months away from a new council that will steer things for the next 4 years, and there'll be opportunity to have discussion then about how to approach this. I do respect where Councillor Bell is trying to get us to, but I won't support the amended motion. If it fails and then we see another motion about doing the 1%, I would support that. I have a question though, and that is, because there was some confusion on the decision made last time about whether this, grows by 1% each year, is it implied within Councillor Bell's amended motion that is the case? Is that a commitment, or are we just committing to this budget?
If I may, my recollection of last year was that we, as a council, recognised this is a really good model in order to build the funding that we need in 10 years' time. And I thought we'd bought into it. I don't know whether that implies that we are committed to it.
Okay. Councillor Pearce?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm in full support of the Councillor Bell's motion here for a couple of reasons. First reason is I firmly believe it's the right thing to do and the right way to do it. I look back at my first term on council, and there was a decision that Councillor Boma at the time and myself brought forward, and as far as asset management was concerned, And it was Councillor Coleman and Councillor Miller, you'd probably remember the debate we had on that because we wanted to put $1 million into asset management. We ended up doing that in the end, and the discussion was, this is something we need to do going forward, or we're gonna find ourselves in a hole. If we look at what we're putting into asset management now, had we have continued that along like we did, but we kept chipping it off and chipping it off and chipping it off, now we're playing catch up. If we look at the numbers by themselves, as we said, we've talked about this hospital is going to happen. I would much rather by year 2035, have to come up with another, let's hypothetically say it's 100 million, have to come up with another 10 million at that time, as opposed to another 75 million at that time by just putting the 1% per year in there. Again, yes, it is a hit to the taxpayer, we get that. But I would prefer, as I talked earlier about smoothing out, I would prefer the accumulative over the years rather than down the road we go, uh-oh, this is gonna happen, we've got, this is being built, it's gonna take, let's say, 3-4 years to build it, so now all of a sudden we've gotta come up with, 50, 60, 70 million dollars in 3 or 4 years. That to me would be an outrage as a taxpayer myself. I would much prefer it over the long term, accumulative, paying it through. When we get there, we're close to the 100 million mark, which is where we're gonna have to be at least, to Councillor Bell's point. I think it's gonna be north of that, but that definitely gives us a good start. I think it's the right thing to do, and I'm in full support of the motion, the accumulative 1%.
Councillor Oakley.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm of two minds here. I think there's, especially, if we look at the slide on page 5 of our presentation today, I think there's two different stories we can look at here. I think it's fair to acknowledge the fact that the County of Brant is the second lowest in the area. We provide, I think, quite a lot of services. We're roughly 30% under a lot of our competitor, or a lot of our peers here, in terms of property taxes. But I also think it's fair to acknowledge the fact that, if I'm a county resident, I don't pay property taxes in Brantford or Norfolk or Cambridge. I pay taxes here, and I think it's fair to acknowledge between 2022 and today, over this term of council, we've had a 20% tax increase over the past 4 years. And I recognize as well that that's very challenging for people to pay. Myself and Councillor McAlpine were talking a little ways back about, I think our tax arrears are up from 4% at the beginning of the term to 11% now. And I'm comfortable saying at certain points in time, I've been part of that 11%, not being able to pay my property taxes right on time. So I personally do feel the impacts. I do, however, agree with Councillor Pierce here in that, we can't be in a situation here where, the hospital is being built next year, this is in 5 years, 10 years, and we have to come up with $80 million. It's just not going to be feasible for anyone to manage. So I think we do have to do this. I do think we have to commit to doing the cumulative increase. I also think it's fair to point out as well that us committing to this cumulative increase and that becoming the default for next council to deal with does not mean by de facto that council cannot make a different decision. Folks who've been on council for 2 or more terms, I think, can confirm that 2 terms ago, you had made this decision that we would play catch up with our capital budget to, I believe, increasing it $1 million each year until you guys got caught up. And then last term of council, during the pandemic, things changed, you changed that direction. If council in the next term council determines the cumulative isn't manageable, they can make that decision. We're just setting this as the default, not binding the next term of council to where they can't change that decision. So I want that to be out there as well. So ultimately, I will support the amended motion, or the amendment, but recognizing that, yeah, these are challenging times, and we've increased the average property tax $700 in the past 4 years. So, thank you.
Any other comments or concerns? Okay, we have an amendment on the floor. It's been seconded. Everyone's clear what they're voting on? All those in favor? Opposed? Yeah, it's carried. And then we'll go back to the original amendment, or the original motion as amended. All those in favor? Do I need another, put it on the floor again?
Nope.
No, I'm okay. Opposed? Okay, yeah, so there you go. Okay. You know, and as we always talk, I think every second meeting I say about the world that we're living in and how tough it is. I understand that people don't have jobs and people are doing all kinds of things right now. It isn't a very nice world right now. And I understand that people don't have a lot of money like they maybe did during better days or better years, and not that long ago. We've had major things happen in the world, COVID, politics, bigger politics than ours, at different levels. And it is too bad right now because a lot of people don't have a lot of money right now. And I hear it every day. I get stopped every day. And people say, you know, our taxes, I hope you're gonna help us out on our taxes. And I just say, well, we'll do our best. But it is what it is. I mean, we can't keep building and spending and all this without it affecting everybody. And these are tough times. But we still have to do the right thing for the municipality, no matter what. And that's what we were elected to do. And I think that's what we need to do. So I think we've made some great decisions here today. Maybe not all of them, but as many of them as we could. So Heather, next steps?
Nope, still a couple more.
Oh, okay.
The next one is Affordable Housing Reserve.
Oh dear, yeah.
And this one,
Oh, boy.
so this one, basically this would be borrowing the money from the Brant County Power Investment so that we could use it towards Trillium Way, and then we would repay that money back into the Affordable Housing Reserve so that we could move forward with some future projects. As we outlined at the beginning of the meeting, that obviously there is some need for investments in affordable housing, whether we go to the exact target that the city's looking at for us, or we work more on partnerships with some of our developers or our local co-ops, like Adam's proposed over the past couple months. But this would be more, this isn't, we're gonna be spending money out of the Brant County Investment Fund, but we will be repaying this one back. So it'll basically be another debt for the municipality. We will be paying it back internally so that we get the interest rather than the province gets the interest, is really the difference in this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to put an amendment on this if I could.
Let's get on for it. I think Councillor Halswell wanted to put it on the floor. Seconded by Councillor Oakley.
Yeah, I'm in full support of, again, using the money there. It's there, and in this case, as Heather says, it will be paid back. I think this is also very important, and as is important as the hospital fund. So my amendment would be to make it the same as that. Let's use 10 million. My rationale behind that is the fact that, as Councillor Bell's always saying, debt is not always a bad thing. And I think if we're talking about smart things to use debt for, I think affordable housing is absolutely one of those. And if we look at if we were not to take any money out of there, and it's 11.5, the interest alone that we would be paying on that over, let's say, a 10-year span, I don't know the exact number, but we're talking a good chunk of change. If we were to take 10 million from the Brant County Power, now all of a sudden we're $1.5 million in debt as opposed to $11 million in debt. That in itself bringing the interest rate down. Yes, it's going to be paid back from the internal, from the county to the Brant County Power Fund again. But I think that money that we save in the interest at using $10 million as opposed to 11.5, I think that over the long run is going to balance itself out and be able to be used to remain in the investment account for affordable housing. So my amendment would be to instead of 11.5, or sorry, instead of 15 million from Brant County Power, we take 10. Looking for a seconder.
15 to 10. You're seconding, or do you want to comment?
I'll second to get on the floor, but I have a question, and I'm not clear on a couple things here.
All right, well, it's on the floor. It's been seconded. I think Councillor Oakley is going to speak to it first, and we'll come back to Councillor Miller.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question on the, whether it's 10 million, 15 million, a question on the wording here. So it stated 11.5 would be used as funding source for Trillium Way to be recuperated through internal payments to the tax levy to replace this funding amount. Would that replacement be, would the 11.5 replacement over the 25 years go back into the generic investment fund, or specifically the recuperated funds would still be earmarked in an affordable housing fund? Or to be determined?
What I had proposed was that it would be earmarked for affordable housing. However, the way Councillor Pierce worded his amendment, to me suggests that it would be going back into the investment fund, and then council could decide where it goes from there.
Okay.
Councillor House, and then Councillor McAlpine. I'm sorry, Councillor Miller's first.
Yeah. Okay, appreciate it, thank you. Yeah, just, Councillor Oakley's kind of, the way you've written it, I'm not clear, but it wasn't intended to go back into the Brant County Power Fund, the way this was written, the way this is written, correct?
Correct, that's the way I wrote it.
Okay, and so, thank you, Mr. Mayor, just indulge me. So Councillor Pierce, are you saying that this 11.5 be knocked down to 10 and that it go back into the Brant County Power Investment Fund?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Now Councillor Oakley, and then Councillor McAlpine.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So to comment on the amendment specifically, so if the motion pass, or if the amendment passes, I'll support it at that point, but I can't support the amendment itself. One, I do think the full $15 million makes sense here, and two, I do think specifically that the funds to be recuperated should remain in our affordable housing reserve. I think we have a serious need for affordable housing, and that's not going to go away, and I think having a dedicated reserve that, while it's not being used, does accrue investment interest is a good way to use the money.
Councillor McAlpine, before we go to you, I'm going to go back to Councillor House because he did have his hand up, and then we'll come back to McAlpine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief, what he said. I just prefer the way the original staff recommendation was written, so I will not support the amendment, but will support the original if and when we get to it.
Councillor McAlpine.
So I just want to be clear, the money that we're taking out, the 15 million, and we're repaying it back to us, would we be repaying ourselves back with interest? So then we're not depleting the full amount through inflation?
Through the chair, yes, that was the intention, that we would repay with interest, similar to what we would have paid IO.
And then the follow-up, so if we take another 15 million out and the 10 million for the hospital, then we're down to approximately only 5 million left.
Correct.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Heather. I'm torn whether I support Councillor Pierce's amendment or not, because I think I need to fully understand the base first, and then I'll come back to Councillor Pierce's amendment. A couple of questions. I think you talked about 14.5 million that we had to pay for Trillium Way. Earlier, I thought that was a number that you had in your documents.
No,
11 something, wasn't it?
it's like 11.4 something.
I thought you said that the total bill for Trillium Way was 14.5. I thought I saw that earlier, but maybe I'm wrong.
I thought it was 11 and a half, but does it really matter?
Yeah, slide 21 says, of this, an estimated 11,450 will be paid by the county for the Trillium Way project.
So our share would be 11.5.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And earlier we talked about the need potentially to spend another 25 million on affordable housing to meet our commitment from the Mayor's joint task force. How would we deal with that extra 25 million?
Once again, I believe I mentioned last meeting, I do not believe we will be likely meeting that by 2031 unless council wants to debt fund a large portion of that. Moving forward with projects, that was why I had originally intended the money to go back into the Affordable Housing Reserve so that we would have some money to start acquiring property and gearing up for the next municipal build.
Okay, so, so Alison was going to say something.
Alison's going to speak to it, yeah.
Through your worship to Councillor Bell. So I believe the intent, or at least my intent, was for staff to be digging into this, which they are, and look at what our reality is relative to when these targets were set. A lot of things have changed since then, both economically and our local climate. So to come back and really talk about how we can achieve the units, but maybe in a different way than originally contemplated. So that's what I'm suggesting that staff work on, not to rethink the amount of units we're going to deliver, but maybe how we deliver them, whether that be through a co-op with, there's potentially some federal funding becoming available. So different methods aside from that 25 million that was originally contemplated in the agreement.
Thank you, Alison. I'm fully supportive of looking at alternatives. But then just to go back to what's written here, that if we went to Councillor Pearce's amended number, what would be the impact to the tax levy? What would be the difference between following your recommendation here and Councillor Pearce's amended recommendation? Is it going to make a difference to what we ask the taxpayer to pay? Because ultimately, this says we're going to ask the taxpayer to pay through the tax levy for making up our $11.5 million.
There shouldn't be a difference because we're either paying the money back to ourselves or back to IO. So that debt financing piece that's going to be catching up is going to be a debt financing piece in either model. So tax levy impact should be minimal, if any.
Okay, then I can support Councillor Pearce's $10 million.
Yeah. Any other comments or concerns? Okay, so the amendment is to take it to $10 million, not 15. It has a seconder. Spencer, yeah. Okay, any other questions? All those in favor to take it back to 10? Opposed? And it passes. Okay. I think too, while we're still on this page before, my confusion was you've got things printed on both sides of my paper, so I have to stand on my head to see every second page here, so we'll have to do it differently next time. I think when we go and revisit social services, like a couple of councillors have asked, when we get a chance, whether Alison and Michael do it or whoever does it, I think we also have to separate the homelessness and addictions piece of social services. Just because on the front page of the paper today, there's a big reveal of a homeless and things. I read about it in the paper today, and it's something I'm supposed to be co-chair of. So it's just not working out. They're doing business without me, and then we're on the hook to pay for half of it. Councillor Miller?
Yeah, on that note, and I agree with you, I think when we look at it, we got to revisit the whole thing, because if you look historically, social services was given to the municipalities, but with it were a whole bunch of assets, right? And the city's been selling off some of those single unit houses, single detached houses, and using that money to help fund their contribution, right? So I'm not sure of the whole fairness of the whole situation, and I think when we look at that, we got to revisit that.
No, and I think we all know that whole mayor's task force thing happened when the city decided to move a comma from Kevin's mayor's task force to mayor's task force, put the comma on the other side of mayor, and I was obviously a partner, and then I was automatically a partner, which has never seemed right, and and when you look at the paper today, you can go home and look at it. I'm not making these things up. There's a big push to unveil another homeless project, and I read about it today. So that just goes to show you how out of the loop we are, because Councillor Miller brought something up this week already about another piece of social services, and they just hire people and we pay for them. It's just, I mean, that's not why we're here today, and I'm sorry that we went off topic. It is something we do have to revisit, because it's costing us a ton of money. Councillor Bell?
Can I speak now to the
Sure you
amended
can.
motion? Having gone to $10 million rather than the 15, that would then imply that where we have in an earlier sheet, projects under estimated debt charges for approved debt yet to be issued, that will then impact that line. So we'll be putting more into that area than we had earlier assumed.
I know that we had, yes, it will increase it because Trillium Way was underfunded as a project regardless, because we didn't collect ECs for it anymore. There's things that came about. So either way, we were looking at either debenturing more than we had expected, or we would have been looking at borrowing internally.
So will we debenture that in 2026? You've got a list of 4 projects which accumulate to
I think we had
8.
Trillium Way listed as one of them, because we did have a debenture component.
I don't see it, Heather, but maybe I'm
Okay,
just missing
I'm
it.
not sure exactly when we were planning to debenture. I think maybe even though I do believe Heather, our manager of finance had probably intended that we would be internally financing. So she doesn't have it listed as like on her debenture list to go to the province. But there was, I believe, 5 or 6 million intended to be debt financed in the charges itself.
But even if it was internally financed, we're still using the tax levy to,
Yeah, and it's still in that calculation, but she has an ongoing list of when she's planning on sending debentures to the province. So it wasn't, that's where those projects got mined from, so.
so in this big sheet here, what was the assumption? What's assumed in there for
I believe
tax levy component of repaying for Trillium Way?
5 million, I believe,
Built in here?
built in there, because we had always intended to debenture part of it. But we had not
So now we need
expected
to
to this
catch up with
extent.
another 6.5 million.
Yes,
So and we just agreed that part of that will be from an internal source of funding. So we're paying for it using our own bank, but the balance would have to come from IO.
yep, which will, so expectedly, payments for that will start in 2027.
So do we have a sense of what the impact will be? Is that something Heather Mifflin can model?
Sorry? The whole 11? Okay, so we've just confirmed, the whole 11, paying back the 11, one way or the other, is included in the model. The 11.5.
So it's already in this
Yep,
spreadsheet.
because at the time we created the model, we knew it was either gonna have to come internally or externally, that there was no other funding source gonna arise, so she put the whole amount in. to
Okay,
be
so the
repaid.
charts which talk about debt issuance timing probably need to be tuned up a bit then to
Yeah,
reflect.
it's just a matter of that project, because we're not actually, we weren't planning on going to IO, so it didn't make her project list, but it is in the model itself.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Councillor Oakley?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor to the motion as amended. Obviously, I preferred the original. I would call that the better option. This is the good option, but I'm happy to support it because we're still, I think this is great use of funds. We're going to pay ourselves back, and it's for a great use case. So I'm happy to support the motion as amended.
Any other comments before we call the votes? Okay, call the vote as the amended. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay,
So the last decision is the contingency fund, but I've asked Heather to put up the numbers so we can look at them before we get into the contingency discussion, because that may impact how much we choose to move. So the numbers are up on the screen. Currently for 2026, we're looking at 6.63. 2027, 4.59, or sorry, I can't even see that from here. Is that 6.9? Yeah, 2028, 5.68, 2029, 1.81, and once again, once we get beyond that, it's a little difficult to have great certainty, but the numbers are up there on your screen where we're at now, and then we can move on to the discussion on the contingency.
Questions on what's on the screen? Councillor Bell? Yeah. Any questions on what's on the screen? No? Okay.
Okay. Back to the slides, Gary?
Yep. And then Councillor Bell, we're going back to the slides.
Yeah, I would make a motion that we take as much money as we need from the contingency and rate stabilization reserve to bring the number back down to 5%.
Seeking a seconder. Councillor McAlpine. Discussion. Councillor Miller, you first.
Just in terms of that, can we get a number for that?
Yep, just give finance a couple minutes to figure that out.
Thank you.
Councillor Oakley, while we're waiting.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, when we do have that number, if we could get back up the spreadsheet, so I mean, we know by now, I'm opposed to using the contingency reserve for this purpose. And I think, again, I want to praise staff, the mayor, for developing this new budget process, because I think it will help illustrate the point that I'm trying to make the past couple of years. And again, with the fact that we've had to change our budget due to some change in legislation, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Because I think it will show the story here of some of what we've seen already and adding more into this year, later years have gotten lower. Just by the nature of our base tax rate is higher and we'll have more to pay for in future years, means we have to increase it less in future years. What this does is kick the can down the road. And I maintain that that is not a very good idea, that we're offloading costs onto future taxpayers. And I don't think it's responsible to do, so.
Councillor Bell.
I understand where Councillor Oakley is coming from, but it seems that historically, we always end up with a surplus. It's been pretty continuous over the 7 years I've been on council. And it's time we actually recognise that structurally and build it in as part of our budgeting process. And my guess is the number we need this year is probably much the same as the number we had last year. And my understanding is that our surplus for this year is approaching that number again. Perhaps staff can help me out on that.
Okay. Councillor Pierce and then Councillor McAlpine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm in full support of whatever it takes to bring it down to 5%. Again, I've said it before today and I've said it previous to today. This helps us smooth it out to the point that as we get down the road, the numbers are, you know, if we look at just the last slide that was up there, 2029 is, 1.8%, 2030 is 3.35%. Sure, they could adjust, but again, I think it's a smart use of money to help balance things out and level it out and bring that cost down over the years. So I'm in support of it.
Councillor McAlpine.
Yeah, I'm likewise supportive of it. I like the idea of smoothing out the tax increase. As I say, I don't like seeing the taxes going up as fast as it is. But the other thing I was going to point out is that, and along the same line, thinking that in general, we've had a surplus to put back into our contingency at the end of the year. And so if we continue that, then we are not depleting that reserve in the long run. So that's why I'm in support of it.
Okay, you've got your numbers, Heather?
Yep, through the mayor. So the contribution for 2026 to get down to a 5% increase is looking at 1.43 million. So 1,430,000. Once again, just to be clear, this isn't the end of the budget process. We'll be coming back in January, kind of tying all these pieces up, double checking the numbers and, presenting where we're at in January through the mayor's budget. But if council moves the 1.43 from the contingency, then we get back down to 5 as our starting point now.
Councillor Oakley and then Councillor Bell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, would we be able to see those numbers and the year-over-year projection. I just want to point out, the reason why it's a similar number as last year is because we did this last year. Had we not done this last year, we'd already be at 5% this year. That's exactly the point that I'm trying to make here. And now we're at 7.79 for 2027. Like, this is what we're doing. This is what we've done every year.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you. So just a question to Heather's. Do we have a latest estimate of the surplus for this year? I think I'd seen one recently that Heather put out.
I don't believe we do, because I think our last variance was done in September. So there's a lot of bills that get paid at the end of the year. So I think we would, I think we are expecting a surplus, but I don't know that we would be comfortable giving some kind of ballpark as to what we're
You're
looking.
very cautious people. You
We are
find.
very cautious people in finance, yes.
Councillor McAlpine.
If I'm correct, there, when we were looking at this, I think last year, we were actually looking at a 13% increase at one point. And so with the increase of our commercial income, we've been able to bring it down to 5% right now. So I think we'd be at a good place if we did this. So.
Any other comments? Councillor Miller and then Councillor Oakley.
Just, if 5% is 5%, but inflation, we said, was running at what right now? Around 2.2?
Yeah, it's been up and down over the course of the year, but somewhere between 2 and 3 is usually where it's landing this year.
So at the end of the day, I mean, the tax increase is larger than that, but because of assessment, we managed to get down to 5%, which is still double inflation. So, yeah, I can support that motion.
Anyone else? Councillor Oakley, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the last time I'll speak on this, I need to get a budget pillow to scream into. Would it be fair to say that a large part of the reason why we're down from the 13 from last year is because we've also, as I believe in our package here, we've deferred a number of capital projects into later years, like the Brant Sports Complex that was meant to be in this year. I believe we diverted some road projects like Mechanic Street into further years. Would that be fair that that probably has had more of an impact on getting us from 13% down to 5% based on that rather than the increase in tax assessment?
I don't know that it's deferral so much as some of these projects we found additional funding sources for. So there was some shifting of money more than projects being specifically put off for a future year.
My point there still being that whether it's alternative funding sources, we push things back, the increase in tax assessment has not had a 8% increase or 8% change in the differential between our January long-term financial plan estimate and today.
No, I think the number, yeah, it's more funding sources. I think probably high level, just I think maybe 2% we're better off because of the growth numbers. And, we are expecting some major developments again this year. So, hopefully that 7, whatever percentage we're looking at for next year, we'll also be able to be in a better position than we are expecting by the time we get there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No. So we have it on the floor as amended. Has a seconder. We'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Lonely Lucas. Okay, thank you. Heather?
Okay, thank you through the mayor. So now we're on to next steps. So where we go from here with our new budget process is between, probably not this afternoon, but starting tomorrow, finance staff will work with the mayor to draft the 2026 proposed budget documents. We are expecting those to be delivered to council on January 16th. January 22nd, we will do the same kind of budget initial presentation we usually do. We'll have staff do the department overviews. We'll give you an update on where we're at in terms of actual 2026 numbers. And, oh, why are we not moving here? Okay, and then between January 22nd And February 4th will be council's opportunity to bring forward if there's any changes they want to the budget from there. So once again, decisions made today were all based on recommendations for the budget, not hard stone, this is how it's gonna be. So anything that council doesn't like in that initial budget document, they can forward to staff to put forward as an amendment to the budget. Those amendments will be considered on a special meeting on February 5th. And then following that, the budget will be deemed approved. There's no final recommendation on the budget, but it will be deemed approved on February 15th. The only thing that would mess with that timeline is if council makes amendments to the budget and then the mayor decided to veto, then there's more process on the back end of that. But presuming we get to the end of February 5th and the amendments made are the amendments made, then February 15th, our budget will be concluded.
Any questions for Heather and/or the process? Councillor Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not part of the, well, it's part of the budget is the community grants, right? And I think we set aside, what did you set aside, 0.5% of operating, right, for community grants?
We did, but then we did allocate a portion of that to the IPV-GBV funding for 2026.
And that will take up the bulk of that.
Well, I think, once again, off the top of my head, I think we're still about 185,000 for community grants.
So there'll be a lot less grants. And my question then is, we did request that it be kind of tightened up as far as county requirements go. Any progress on that?
So once again, council, we're not restricting it to county residents, but we are including questions in there, asking them to give more direct input as to how many county residents they're serving. So giving some kind of metric to the idea of they're actually serving the county, not just.
Okay, so we won't actually see that. You've already done that.
Yep, we've already put that forward to the foundation as a
Okay.
requirement. Once the grant applications come out, I mean, those questions are open to anybody to look at.
I will look at them. Thank you.
Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Comment if I could?
Yep.
I would just like to, I know it's been said a few times, but thank you to staff for all the work they've put in on this, keeping us on board and giving us the information that we need in order to make the appropriate decisions. So again, I know it's not a quick task, and then we ask you to go back and do it, and you do, and we ask you to go back and do it, and there's been, you know, I just want to, I think I can speak for everybody here that it's already been said that we appreciate all the work that you put into this. And we know it's not a small task, and we know it's a very important task. So I just wanted to, I know it's been said, but I want to reiterate, thank you to all involved.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you to everyone. Back to the Community Foundation for a minute, Councillor Miller. I know that you are not a big fan. I invite you to come, even with me, to go down and talk to the Community Foundation. You'll find many friendly faces. Jane Carmen is there. She's vice chair this year, and lots of people you're going to know. And just, you know, just because I'm maybe more familiar with it than some people, I think you should take the time, Councillor Miller, so that you feel better about it, because I know you don't feel good about it. And that's okay. You have your own reasons for feeling that way. But I think we should go and talk to them at the foundation, because I think anything you're uncomfortable with can be fixed. And I hope you take me up on that offer to go down and talk to them.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Anybody else that's not really clear on how the foundation works, we can go down and talk to the foundation ourselves. And as I said, you'll find a lot of county people on the board, and Jane Carmen used to be our CEO, so there's no one that knows the county better than she does. So she understands our needs in the county. So, Councillor Coleman?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just on that note, and I have a problem with that, but why doesn't the foundation come to see us?
It becomes too big and impersonal. I think some of the things that are
Well,
bothering.
explain to me, how can it be any different? Us just going down to see them if they come here?
Because it would be more private, and we would be able to speak more freely. All the councillors don't have a problem with the Community Foundation. Some pieces of the county do. And
So is there a possibility that you can set this up for some of us?
we can set it up right in my office, yeah.
Thank you.
You want me to? Done. Anybody that wants to come to a meeting of myself and Jane Carmen and the foundation, just let me know. And we'll just take it to whatever room fits all the people that are interested. Thank you. Councillor Oakley.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to, as someone who did support the direction with the Brant Community Foundation, I just want to clarify that I think my colleague's opposition to us using the foundation, I don't think is based in any opposition to the foundation itself. I think moreover the process and wanting to be closer tied to it. I just want to make it clear to everyone that I don't believe it's the intent of my colleagues that they have an issue with the foundation itself or how it's run.
No, that's right. I think they just want to ask some questions and get some answers, so. I think the meeting's necessary, though. I don't like to see every time it comes up that people are not happy with it. Anyway, is there anything else, Spencer, before we? Heather, you're good? Everybody's good? Staff has nothing that they're dying to tell council? No? Okay, with that then, we're just going to adjourn this meeting, and the next meeting will be the call of the chair. I need someone to adjourn.